Alright, match number 5. Got a land heavy hand, but not too land heavy. Opponent puts a card on the bottom after mulliganing to 5. Lead off with Carrion Feeder. Ash Barrens get cycled, revealing a forest. Blue-green Ponder deck. I'm not really sure what we're up against here. Maybe some sort of turbo mill deck with a lot of fogs. Alright, go to attacks. I could play Brindle Shoat first and sacrifice it to make Carrion Feeder a 2/2, but that can wait. Alright, they pass the turn with most likely Counterspell open. I'll play Carrion Feeder pre-combat just in case they flash in a blocker and I want something to sacrifice to my first Carrion Feeder. Accumulated Knowledge. Okay, so this is a slow deck we're going up against. I'm pretty sure they're going to have Fog's main deck. Or if not the card named Fog, they'll have fog effects. Alright, here I'm going to add 3 power to the board. Attack for 6 instead of 3. This will force out a Fog if they have it, most likely. Alright, Tangle. Well, that's a reason not to attack with everything in the future. This Rite of Consumption could be a nice way to get around fog effects, potentially. Jace's Erasure is found with a transmuted Muddle the Mixture, so yeah, this looks like a Turbo Mill deck. Turbo Fog, Turbo Mill, whatever they call it. Alright, these Tragic Slips are going to be useless. They probably are a creatureless deck. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We can make this 6 power and write for 6 right now, but obviously that's not enough. Most likely they're going to have counterspells. Obviously they have at least Muddle the Mixture, but they probably have 3 more Muddle the Mixture and 4 counterspell in their deck, so Rite of Consumption is not an auto win by any means. Alright. Jace's Erasure comes down. And unfortunately, they do have an untapped land, so they're representing Tangle again. So the question is, how much should I attack with? Let's leave back a Carrion Feeder. That way, if this doesn't work, then next turn I can sacrifice everything to Carrion Feeder, including whatever I top deck, hit them with it, and then Rite of Consumption that Carrion Feeder. Alright, they took the damage. So now, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can hit them for 6 with Rite of Consumption, while they can't possibly have Counterspell or Muddle the Mixture up. They could have main deck Dispel or maybe Mana Leak, but I can pay for Mana Leak. I suppose they could have Negate. I suppose I'll just wait a turn. Middle land. Ponder. Now they're forced to fog. So the question is, can they fog and counterspell or Rite of Consumption in the same turn? They'll need to hit an untapped land if they want to do fog, or if they want to do counterspell plus Tangle. They choose not to shuffle with Ponder, so they found something they liked. which means they almost certainly have a fog effect in hand now if they didn't shuffle, or they'd be looking for one. Gush, okay. They mill us some more. Unearth is an interesting card. I wonder if I'm going to sideboard any of these out. It gets better whenever they're milling us because then we get more targets that can potentially be unearthed, but it's also worse against a deck that's not removing our creatures from the board. So basically we can only get them the unearthed value through things that are milled. Snap, our carrion feeder. So now we have the choice of sacrificing it to the other carrion feeder or not. I think I'd rather just put it back in my hand. I can always replay it next turn and then sacrifice it to the carrion feeder. I have enough mana. I pass a turn with only 3 mana available. Alright, so I'm going to attack with these 3. I have lethal with Hunger of the Howlpack, and I also have lethal with carrion feeder, Hunger of the Howlpack, Rite of Consumption. So let's see what they do. Hopefully they tap out for Tangle and only have 1 blue mana remaining. And then I win. Or at least I don't get countered by Counterspell or Muddle. Alright, so they fall to 2. Resolve my carrion feeder. And now I need to decide if I'm going to Rite of Consumption now or wait. I think I'm going to Rite of Consumption now while they don't have double blue mana available. They can negate this, but even if they negate it, it's not the end of the world for me. They can also gain life at instant speed, potentially, but I don't think they have anything that just straight gains life. There's a fog called Respite that gains life, but it's for attacking creatures. And there's no attacking creatures right now. Arcane Denial. This is good when you're trying to mill your opponent out. They get to counter spell and draw a card, and then we're allowed to draw up to 2 cards if we want to. And I think we're far enough from being milled right now that we should go ahead and take our cards. We need to find another Rite of Consumption. Because as it is right now, it should be fairly trivial to have 2 power every single turn to threaten them with. And even through things like Tangle and Respite, we should be able to threaten lethal almost every single turn. So we want to have another way to attack them, which would be the Rite of Consumption. The second copy in our deck. Alright, so I'm going to Rancor first. I'm playing it on the non-token in case they have Snap. So now they have to Fog if they want to, or Tangle or Respite or whatever. Okay, Moment's Peace, so that gets to be flashback next turn. Go ahead and play this Bone Splitter, make sure creature I have is always lethal. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing out all my creatures here. They shouldn't have any Wrath type effects or anything to punish me for playing extra creatures. Except for potentially, I forget what it's called. It's like 2 and a blue sorcery. For each creature, its controller sacrifices it unless they pay 1 mana. Brainstorm. Well, that's really good with Jace's Erasure. Luckily, they've only found 1 copy of this so far. We're about halfway through our library now. We know they have at least 1 Fog in the bank. And with how many cards they're drawing, they probably can Fog every single turn until we lose now. So we really need to find that second Rite of Consumption and hope it doesn't get milled. Alright, here I'm going to attack with 2 things, so I can't lose to a Snap. I'd have to be 2 Snaps or a Fog. I don't want to attack with too many things, though, because they could have Tangle or Respite. Moment's Peace is flashback, okay. so they don't spend anything additional from their hand for that. Now they're milling a lot more cards than we're drawing, so odds are the second Rite of Consumption is going to get milled and not drawn. So if they can keep on fogging, they probably are advantaged to win this game. Alright, 2 attacks again. Show us a fog or 2 snaps. Alright, there's Moment's Peace. That's good for next turn as well. Unfortunately, I don't have any Relic of Progenitus on my sideboard. That would be good against Moment's Peace and Accumulated Knowledge. Accumulated Knowledge for 6. So now we're going to attack. They're going to flashback Moment's Peace, and then we have to pray that they have no counter magic and no other fogs. No other fogs would be enough, but if they have fogs, we need to hope they don't have counter magic and that we draw our second Rite of Consumption. Whirlpool Rider. Oh my goodness. Well, that's game. When it enters the battlefield, shuffle the cards from your hand into your library, then draw that many cards. So they get to draw 9 cards. That's 18 triggers from this, and we mill out. That's pretty cool. Alright, we get to concede. Alright, so Duress is obviously coming in. Contaminated Ground could be interesting, but I don't think... I mean, we could put it on an island and make it harder for them to cast Counterspell or Muddle the Mixture. You can put it on a forest before we attack if they have a forest and the island up, and then they can't fog. Gleeful Sabotage could also come in against the Erasures. Oh, we only have 1 Rite of Consumption, not 2 Rite of Consumption. I'm not sure what I was thinking. I did speak to Noxinex, the creator of this deck, or at least the refiner of this deck, about putting in, I believe, a 2nd Rite of Consumption. Just because it's so good with Bloodthorn Vampire, Carrion Feeder. But it can get stuck in your hand is the issue. Having 2 of these whenever you don't even want the first one is obviously awful. So you could potentially try to put in more Rite of Consumption, but it would be dead some amount of the time. Alright, they have Snap, and we don't really need to power up our creatures that much. So I think I'm going to do this. Take out all the Rancors, the Bone Splitter, the Hungers, and then bring in Duresses, Gleeful Sabotage, and Contaminated Ground. And then I need to cut one more thing. Probably an Unearth. It's nice to be able to get back my good creatures, but I'm going to have enough creatures most likely. I could bring in my Bone Splitter, I guess, over maybe a Read the Bones. But Read the Bones helps me find my sideboard cards, which is nice, especially Gleeful Sabotage. I think I'll put in a Bone Splitter over an Unearth. I like being able to make any creature a decent threat, so I don't have to attack with everything and play into Respite or Tangle. And we'll submit. Get to play first. We have the Gleeful Sabotage. We really need to draw lands. I'm going to keep it anyway. We have enough creatures to conspire the Gleeful Sabotage, potentially. If they manage to get 2 Jace's Erasure very early, and if they manage to get 2 very early and we destroy both of them very early, then it's going to be incredible for us. Alright, cycle the Ash Barrens. Get a 2nd island, which they play. Actually, they didn't play that island, so we know they have another one in hand. That's what happens when you play different art islands. Probably not going to be relevant for us to know, but I think I'm just going to kill this right now. Make sure they get no value off of it, so they can't counter my Gleeful Sabotage. And attack. I would love for them just to play another one next turn and me to get a 2-for-1 value off this Gleeful Sabotage, but the odds of that aren't very high. And I have 2 more of these that I can draw eventually, so. Accumulated Knowledge main phase. Brainstorm main phase. I'm not sure why they're doing all this main phase. They're wasting their draw triggers when they don't have a Jace's Erasure on the field, and they're not representing Tangle. Like, maybe I wouldn't have attacked with all their creatures if they just pass with their hand up. Alright, go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 power on the board. 7 if you count the fact that I can sacrifice the spawn to the Carrion Feeder. So they're technically on a 2-turn clock. They have no untapped green mana here, which means I'm probably going to get in for at least one attack. Main phase Gush. If we draw Right of Consumption, we win, I believe. They mill 2 creatures from us. They choose to shuffle with Ponder. There are 8 cards in hand, so they're going to have to discard a hand size. We lose a Contaminated Ground, which unfortunately would have been pretty good here right after they gushed and went down to so few lands. And we draw Gleeful Sabotage. Well, that's 6, 7, 8, 9. No reason to play the Nest Invader here. Let's just take care of this while they're tapped out. And I could sacrifice Eldrazi Spawn to get a Nest Invader down, but that's not necessary. Our board presence is impressive enough. Playing Nest Invader first and waiting on Gleeful, just because we could conspire it if they do somehow go for another Jace's Erasure, would also work. But they're not going to go for another Jace's Erasure because they have to fog here basically every single turn now, so their mana is going to be all tied up. Something they could do, though, is Fog plus Brainstorm or Fog plus Ponder, so it's nice to get the Erasure down away earlier rather than later, so they don't get any additional triggers on it, and we have as much time as possible before they mill us out. Really, even hitting these Erasures with Gleeful Sabotage isn't that big of a deal. It's nice to get rid of them, but they weren't killing us anytime soon. The real danger is them setting up an engine of card advantage and being able to fog every turn. And if they can fog every turn because of how many cards they have in hand and Whirlpool Rider, then they're going to find those Erasures eventually. They don't need to get them down early. If those 2 Gleeful Sabotages had been Duresses, we'd be doing a lot better this game. Because then we could guarantee that they have no fogs in hand because we could get rid of them all. Alright, our opponent conceded. And we get to sideboard for game 3. I don't think I want any changes here. I'll run it right back. Alright, on the draw. Triple Duress is pretty decent, actually. The third one might miss, but if it does miss, that means their hand is pretty bad. They mulligan to 5, put a card on bottom. Well, them mulliganing to 5 makes the third Duress a lot worse. Hopefully they don't play an Erasure on turn 2, because I don't have a Sabotage in hand to get rid of it. Alright. Duress you. And then follow up with Blister Pod. Fog, Accumulated Knowledge, Whirlpool Rider. Well, they're going to cycle Accumulated Knowledge on their end step, that's for sure. They have no green mana, so the fog is a little bit not as bad for us. Additionally, they're probably going to be forced to play this Whirlpool Rider looking for green mana if we take the Accumulated Knowledge. So there is definitely some argument to taking the Accumulated Knowledge, because it strands the fog in hand with no green mana. That means they're going to have the Whirlpool Rider. I kind of like this. This denies a draw. Additionally, I can pick up the fog later, like next turn if I want to, if they don't have any green mana yet, and they can't cast it in response. Whereas Accumulated Knowledge, they might just end up with no instants or sorceries in hand. And then the next Duresses could be dead. Fog Island Whirlpool Rider is what we're up against. I really like that Magic Online implemented this. I'm not sure how recent this was, probably months, but I don't play with things that look at the opponent's hand that often, so I didn't notice. There's the island gone. They transmute muddle the mixture, probably looking for the erasure, which they do, okay. And then we get to take it out of their hand because we drew all 3 of our duresses. Alright, so that's out of their hand. They have Fog and Whirlpool Rider and whatever they're drawing this turn. Now they're probably forced to Whirlpool Rider, right? Just to try to do something. Cycle Ash Barrens to go find a forest. Play the forest. Now we attack. Doesn't matter if they fog 2 damage. And I can play Brindleshote. Or I can duress them and waste that fog. I think I'll go with Brindleshote. It's the most mana efficient. If I draw a swamp or a black source, it's going to be really nice to have made this play. Alright, so now they're finally forced to cast this Whirlpool Rider, which means the fog is going to leave their hand. They get 2 new cards. Alright, so we can play 1 spell this turn since we only have 1 black mana. Let's attack first. If they have Tangle in hand, then obviously it's annoying that I didn't duress first. But them tangling just these creatures is not that big of a deal. And that means they tap out and I can resolve Carrion Feeder or Duress. Or even Tragic Slip maybe, but Tragic Slip doesn't really matter. Because we don't care if they block. Alright, so now I'm going to Duress. Well, no. Duress gets rid of a counterspell, or forces them to Arcane Denial, or Let Us Take It, which is nice. But in Erasure, they just would have cast on their turn, so I'm not going to be getting an Erasure with this Duress. I could just play Carrion Feeder. I think I'm going to play Carrion Feeder and wait till their hand is a little bit more stocked. Jace's Erasure comes down. Brainstorm. Well, maybe I should have duressed, because either they had the Brainstorm or they had the Erasure in hand. I have a feeling it wasn't the Erasure. I have a feeling they would have played that last turn if they had it. So they probably top-decked the Erasure and were winning the Brainstorm. So in response to our duress, they could have just Brainstorm and hidden all the things that we could take with Brainstorm. They go to 1 card in hand. Being stuck on 1 black mana is really annoying here. I'm tempted to duress, but I really don't even need to. There's no point. If they hit us with a Tangle, then whatever. And if they have a Moment's Peace or a Fog, they can just do it in response to the duress, and I get no value. I'd rather wait till they have a couple of cards in hand and can't empty their hand in response to the duress. And if they never have a couple of cards in hand, then they're just going to lose. Because they need to be able to fog every turn if they want to win this game, which means being able to get some card advantage, loop some accumulated knowledges together, in which case the duress will be turned back on. Alright, another Erasure, 1 card in hand again. These Erasures couldn't matter less, really. Alright, now they're going to Gush. So they're going to 2 islands in hand, plus whatever they draw from Gush. Additionally, now that they've played 2 Erasures at once, that means we can kill both of them if we ever top deck a, whatever it's called. Our sideboard card. The Naturalize one. They have 2 islands and 2 unknowns in hand. They play a 3rd Erasure, that's all of them, because one of them's been destroyed or discarded to a duress. So they have an island and an unknown in hand. Alright, I'm just going to bash again. I'll leave back 1 Carrion Feeder. Although even that's not even necessary, is it? Because I can just play this other Carrion Feeder if they tangle. Yeah, I'll attack with all. And they take 5. just keep on saving this duress for when I know it's going to get value. I guess if they accumulated knowledge into gush into accumulated knowledge, we could be in trouble. They could just mill us out magically. But me duressing would not have stopped that. Well, they haven't milled our naturalize effect yet, any of them, so that's good for us. Contaminated ground would be a fine draw too here. Nab that forest and force them to fog on their main phase, and then never be able to fog again until they find another forest. Alright, and our opponent conceded. Well, we went 4-1 overall, which is better than I was expecting. I was expecting a 2-3 or a 3-2 finish. The deck looks good, but it's a little bit complicated to play, so I wasn't sure I would play it optimally, but I think I did a pretty decent job, and we got some good matchups, and we got lucky a little bit more often than we got unlucky, so thank you all for watching, and thank you for selecting the deck. I occasionally have polls on my Twitter account about what deck you want me to play next. I give a couple of choices, and this is one of the decks selected through that means, so if you want to help select, you can follow me on Twitter at JakeStylesMTG. If you want to send a deck you want me to play, you can email it to pauper@mtggoldfish.com or tweet it to me at JakeStylesMTG. And if you have any feedback, leave it in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the MTG Goldfish YouTube channel so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching. This has been Playing Pauper with Jake, and I will see you next time.